head south to the coast.
We live by his rules or we die. Or worse, we die and we come back.
Our only hope is in my hands.
You know what really grinds my gears about most apocalypse movies? They spend like an hour showing you how the world ends. The meteors falling, the zombies spreading, the nukes launching. And honestly, we skip that part. They drop you right into a world that's already been destroyed, and humanity is already on its last legs. No backstory, no explanation, just pure survival mode from minute one. And the crazy thing is, these movies are actually way more terrifying because your brain has to fill in the gaps about what horrible thing already happened. Just one last request before we dive in, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me a lot and I really appreciate it. Let's start the countdown.
It's a treat.
Yeah.
It's bubbly.
Number 10, The Road, 2009. Let me start with probably the most soul-crushing movie on this entire list. The Road stars Viggo Mortensen as a father traveling with his young son through a completely devastated America. And right from the opening scene, you can tell that something absolutely catastrophic has happened to the planet. The sky is gray, everything is covered in ash, there are no animals, no plants, nothing. Just endless winter and starvation. What makes this movie so effective is that they never tell you what caused the apocalypse. Was it nuclear war? A supervolcano? An asteroid impact? The movie doesn't care, and honestly, neither do the characters, because it doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that the father and son are trying to reach the coast, hoping it might be warmer and have more resources. Along the way, they encounter other survivors, and this is where the movie gets really dark because most people have turned to cannibalism to survive. There's this one scene in an abandoned house where they discover what's in the basement, and it's just one of the most disturbing things I've ever seen in a mainstream movie. The relationship between the father and son is what carries this film. You can see the father is doing everything in his power to protect his kid's innocence in a world where innocence doesn't exist anymore. The ending of this movie has been debated for years, and I'm not going to spoil it, but I will say that it's both heartbreaking and strangely hopeful at the same time. The Road is not an easy watch. It's slow-paced, it's depressing, and it will stick with you for days afterward. But it's also one of the most honest depictions of what a real apocalypse would probably look like, stripped of all the Hollywood glamour and action sequences. Just people trying to survive one more day in a world that has already ended.
Leaving few survivors and fewer resources.
Number 9, Hell, 2011. This is a German film that not enough people have seen, and that's a shame because it's genuinely one of the most unique takes on the apocalypse genre. The premise is simple, but terrifying. The sun's radiation has increased dramatically, making daytime temperatures rise to lethal levels. Crops have failed, water has become scarce, and civilization has collapsed. The movie follows a family trying to drive through this scorched landscape to reach the mountains where they hope it might be cooler and have water. What I love about Hell, which literally means bright in German by the way, is how it uses light as the enemy. Most post-apocalyptic movies are dark and gloomy, but this one is blindingly bright and hot. The characters have to cover their car windows with whatever they can find, they can only travel during certain hours, and even then the heat is oppressive. The sun itself has become this omnipresent threat that you can't fight or hide from. The movie does an excellent job of showing how quickly people abandon morality when resources become scarce. The family encounters other survivors along the way, and every interaction is filled with tension because you never know if someone is going to help you or try to take what little you have. There's this constant atmosphere of paranoia and distrust that feels very realistic. The cinematography is harsh and overexposed, which makes you almost feel the heat coming off the screen. There are shots where the sun is just a blinding white circle in the sky, and the landscape looks like it's been bleached of all color. It's visually striking and really drives home the idea that nature itself has become hostile to human life. The ending of Hell is ambiguous and a bit controversial, but I think it fits the tone of the movie perfectly. This is not a story about hope or redemption. It's about survival at any cost.
How many of those things have you killed?
Not enough.
Number 8, Stakeland, 2010. Vampire apocalypse movies are usually pretty campy and ridiculous, but Stakeland takes the concept completely seriously and delivers what's basically The Road, but with vampires. The movie is set in an America that has been overrun by a vampire plague, and it follows a teenage boy named Martin who is traveling with a grizzled vampire hunter named Mr. They're heading north to Canada, which is rumored to still be safe from the vampire outbreak. What sets Stake Land apart from other vampire movies is its gritty, realistic tone. These aren't sexy and rice vampires or sparkly Twilight vampires. They're feral, mindless creatures that hunt in packs and have basically reduced humanity to scattered survivor groups hiding in fortified settlements. One of the most interesting aspects of Stake Land is how it deals with religious fundamentalism in the apocalypse. There's a cult called the Brotherhood that believes the vampires are God's judgment on sinful humanity, and they actually work with the vampires, feeding them people they consider sinners. It's a really dark and believable twist because it shows how some people would use the end of the world to push their own agendas and ideologies. The Brotherhood ends up being just as dangerous as the vampires, if not more so, because they're organized and deliberate in their cruelty. The relationship between Martin and Mr. is the emotional core of the film. Mr. is this quiet, stoic survivor who teaches Martin how to fight, how to kill vampires, and how to stay alive in a world that wants you dead. But he also tries to teach him about art, music, and beauty, because he doesn't want Martin to lose his humanity in the process of surviving. The vampire attacks are brutal and intense, shot in a very visceral, handheld style that puts you right in the action. The ending of the movie is bittersweet but fitting, and it shows that even in the darkest times, connection and humanity still matter.
Nice and slow. Put that hand on me again, you won't get it back.
Number 7, The Book of Eli, 2010. Now we're getting into the bigger budget territory with The Book of Eli, which stars Denzel Washington as a lone wanderer crossing a post-apocalyptic America on a mysterious mission. The world has been destroyed by what's implied to be nuclear war, and the survivors are living in a brutal, lawless wasteland where violence is casual and life is cheap. Eli is protecting a book that he believes can save humanity, and a warlord named Carnegie, played by Gary Oldman, wants to take that book for his own purposes. The movie keeps you guessing for a while about what exactly the book is, and when it's finally revealed, it adds a whole new layer of meaning to everything you've watched. Denzel Washington plays Eli with this calm, centered confidence that makes him incredibly compelling to watch. He's not a typical action hero. He's more like a monk or a pilgrim who just happens to be extremely good at fighting when he needs to be. The action sequences are really well choreographed and have this unique style where Eli fights multiple opponents in close quarters using bladed weapons. There's one fight scene in a tunnel that's shot in silhouette that has become pretty iconic. But the movie isn't just about action. It's about faith, purpose, and the power of knowledge in a world where most people can't even read anymore. Gary Oldman is fantastic as the villain because he's not just some crazy warlord. He's intelligent, articulate, and genuinely believes he's doing the right thing by trying to rebuild civilization, even if his methods are tyrannical. The movie also touches on themes of literacy and the preservation of culture. In this world, most books have been destroyed, and very few people can read. Knowledge that we take for granted has been lost, and Eli is literally carrying one of the last remnants of the old world. The twist ending is genuinely clever and makes you want to watch the movie again to catch all the clues you missed the first time.
Must always be kept in balance.
I said sit down!
Number 6, Snowpiercer, 2013. This is probably the most visually creative movie on this list. Snowpiercer takes place on a massive train that continuously circles the frozen Earth after a failed climate change experiment plunged the world into a new ice age. The train is its own closed ecosystem, and the survivors of humanity are divided by class, with the wealthy living in luxury at the front of the train and the poor crammed into squalid conditions at the back. The movie follows Curtis, played by Chris Evans, as he leads a revolution to fight his way from the tail section to the front. What makes Snowpiercer so brilliant is how it uses the train as a metaphor for society and class struggle. The movie is directed by Bong Joon-ho, who later won the Oscar for Parasite, and you can see his style all over this film. The action is visceral and creative, especially a sequence where Curtis's group has to fight through a car full of masked soldiers with axes in complete darkness except for brief flashes of light when they pass through tunnels. It's one of the most unique action scenes I've ever watched. Chris Evans is excellent as Curtis, playing him as exhausted, haunted, and morally compromised by the things he's had to do to survive. There's a monologue near the end where he confesses something horrible from his past, and it's one of the best performances Evans has ever given. The production design is absolutely stunning. Each train car has its own distinct look and feel, from the grimy, crowded tail section to the sterile industrial cars to the bizarre luxury of the front. There's a car that's essentially an aquarium, one that's a classroom full of propaganda, and one that's a nightclub filled with people high on industrial waste drugs. The movie never runs out of creative visual ideas, and it keeps you engaged just to see what strange environment they'll pass through next. The ending is controversial and has been debated endlessly online, but I think it's the only ending that makes sense for the themes the movie has been exploring.
Because really, since women stopped being able to have babies, what's left to hope for?
Number 5, Children of Men, 2006. This might be the most technically impressive movie on this entire list. Children of Men is set in 2027 in a world where humanity has become infertile, and no child has been born in 18 years. Society is collapsing as people realize there's no future, and Britain has become a fascist police state rounding up refugees and immigrants. The movie follows Theo, played by Clive Owen, as he's recruited to transport a miraculously pregnant woman to safety. What sets Children of Men apart is its absolutely incredible cinematography and long unbroken takes. There are action sequences in this movie that are filmed in single shots lasting several minutes, and the technical skill required to pull that off is mind-blowing. The world building in Children of Men is subtle but incredibly detailed. You learn about the state of the world through background details like graffiti, news reports playing on TVs, and casual conversations between characters. The movie never stops to explain everything because the characters already live in this world and wouldn't need to. Clive Owen plays Theo as a burned-out cynic who has given up on life. He's a former activist who now just goes through the motions of existing in a dying world. But when he's forced to help the pregnant woman, you see him slowly rediscover his sense of purpose and humanity. What really devastates me about Children of Men is how it shows people losing hope. When you know there's no future, why bother trying to build anything or improve anything? The movie captures that collective depression and despair in a way that feels authentic. But it also shows how one small spark of hope, one impossible miracle, can give people a reason to keep fighting. The movie's depiction of Britain as a fascist state feels disturbingly prescient when you watch it today. There are detention camps for refugees, propaganda everywhere, surveillance on every corner, and a government using fear and nationalism to maintain control. That CGI-heavy movie.
That stupid broad.
You're so funny when you're sexually frustrated.
Damn it.
Number 3, A Boy and His Dog, 1975. This is an older film that directly inspired a lot of modern post-apocalyptic stories, including Fallout. A Boy and His Dog is set after World War IV has turned the surface world into a radioactive desert, and it follows a young man named Vic and his telepathic dog Blood as they scavenge for food and search for women in the wasteland. Yes, it's as weird as it sounds, and the movie has some very dated and problematic elements, but it's also darkly funny and surprisingly influential. What makes this movie interesting is the relationship between Vic and Blood. The dog is actually the smarter one, speaking telepathically and guiding the simple-minded Vic through the dangers of the wasteland. The surface world is exactly what you'd expect from a 70s post-nuke film with lots of dirt, rubble, and desperate survivors fighting over scraps. But then the movie takes a strange turn when Vic is lured underground to a secret society living beneath the wasteland. This underground civilization has preserved pre-war American culture, but in the most grotesque, artificial way possible. Everyone dresses in wholesome 50s-style clothing, speaks in overly polite manner, and goes through the motions of normal suburban life, but it's all a creepy facade hiding something much darker. The people down there are sterile and desperate for new genetic material, which is why they lured Vic down. The ending of A Boy and His Dog is extremely dark and has been controversial for decades. I won't spoil exactly what happens, but Vic has to make a choice between the dog and something else, and the choice he makes is pretty shocking even by today's standards. Despite its age and some problematic elements, A Boy and His Dog influenced basically every post-apocalyptic story that came after it. The idea of underground vaults or shelters where pre-war society has continued in twisted form became a staple of the genre, showing up in everything from Fallout to The Matrix.
You don't learn to fight, your death's gonna come real soon.
Number 2, The Rover, 2014. This Australian film starring Guy Pearce is absolutely brutal and uncompromising in its vision of a collapsed society. The Rover is set 10 years after an economic collapse has turned Australia into a lawless wasteland where currency is worthless and violence is the only language people understand anymore. Eric, played by Guy Pearce, has his car stolen by a group of criminals, and he becomes obsessively determined to get it back, dragging along a wounded man named Ray, played by Robert Pattinson, who was left behind by the thieves. What makes the Rover so effective is how little it explains. You never learn exactly what caused the collapse or even what's in the car that makes Eric so desperate to retrieve it. Guy Pearce gives a ferocious performance as Eric. He's terrifying and unpredictable, capable of shocking violence one moment and unexpected tenderness the next. Robert Pattinson is equally good as Ray, playing him as simple-minded and naive, but not stupid, desperate for connection and approval from anyone who doesn't immediately abandon or abuse him. The Australian outback is shot as this harsh, unforgiving landscape where civilization has completely evaporated. The towns are dusty, half-empty places where suspicious people trade goods at gunpoint and trust nobody. There's no law, no safety, no community. The Rover is slow-paced and contemplative, building tension through atmosphere and character rather than constant action. When violence does happen, it's sudden, ugly, and usually over quickly. There are no elaborate fight scenes or shootouts. Just people killing each other efficiently and then moving on. The ending reveals what's in the car, and it recontextualizes everything you've watched. Some people find it too small and personal given the stakes Eric was willing to kill for, but I think that's the point. In a world where everything meaningful has been destroyed, the smallest things can take on enormous importance because they're all you have left. Number 1, Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior, 1981. This is the one that started it all. Mad Max 2, also known as The Road Warrior, is the film that basically created the post-apocalyptic aesthetic that every movie and video game has been copying for 40 years. This movie drops you into a world where oil is the most valuable resource, and savage gangs roam the wasteland fighting over what little gasoline remains. Max is a former cop who now survives as a scavenger until he encounters a small community trying to defend their oil refinery from a violent gang led by a masked warlord called the Humongous. What makes The Road Warrior deserve the number 1 spot is how much it accomplishes with relatively little. The final chase sequence is legitimately one of the greatest action scenes ever filmed, with real stunt performers doing genuinely dangerous things with real vehicles traveling at high speeds. People are getting run over, jumping between moving trucks, and being dragged behind vehicles, and it's all actually happening in front of the camera. The world building is done with almost no dialogue. You understand this world through what you see rather than what you're told. The gangs wear cobbled together armor made from sports equipment and scrap metal. The vehicles are modified with armor plating, spikes, and weapons. It's visceral and immediate in a way that exposition dumps could never achieve. The action in The Road Warrior influenced countless films that came after. The vehicular combat, the post-apocalyptic fashion, the desert wasteland setting, the scarcity of resources driving conflict, all of these became genre staples because this movie did them first and did them perfectly. The ending is bittersweet and perfect. Max helps the community escape but doesn't go with them, choosing instead to remain in the wasteland because that's all he knows anymore. This movie proves you don't need a complicated plot or heavy themes to make a great post-apocalyptic film. Sometimes all you need is incredible action, memorable characters, and a fully realized world that feels dangerous and real. So there you have it. 10 apocalypse movies that understand the world has already ended and don't waste your time showing you how it happened. Click the next video to keep watching.